Starting a clothing brand can be hard. It's actually very hard, and it could be very daunting for somebody that's never been in the fashion business, but you've decided to do it, and I'm here to help. In this video and in this channel, I'm going to help you build your clothing brand from the ground up. So get a pen and paper and let's get started. Hi everyone, I'm Annie. I've spent the last 18 years in the fashion industry working my way from a designer to product developer to development director for some of the biggest brands. In the last 4 years, I've helped startup companies start their own brands, and I know it can be very overwhelming if you've never done it before. So I'm here to help you get from idea, concept to launch and everything in between. So let's get started. So the first thing we've got is not just an idea and a concept, because the fact that you want to have a clothing brand is amazing. But now you got to think about what about your clothing brand is going to differentiate you from your competitors, and who are your competitors? Like, what are you trying to do in your clothing brand? I find so many people want to start a clothing brand, but then they don't take the time to really think about this step to figure out what about my brand is going to make people want to buy from me? Because there's tons of brands out there. Let's just be really honest. Who is your audience? That's another thing I noticed that a lot of new startup brands are finding trouble with. They want to create a brand for everybody, and that's not going to get you anywhere. You really need to focus your target to a small niche, and then you can always build it up later. But if you can stay focused, that's going to be your best bet to create a cohesive line that people will continue to come back. Is it going to be your fit? Is it going to be your aesthetics? Is it going to be your sustainability? Is it going to be the fact that you are only US made? Are you working with artisans? You don't need a whole bunch of different things to differentiate yourself. You can just focus on one, but there's got to be something that you can say in one sentence makes you stand out above the rest. The next thing you got to think about is going to be what production process are you going to use? So you can do print on demand, which is basically just you create graphic pieces and buy directly from a print on demand supplier. They have the clothing, you send them the artwork, and you don't have to hold any inventory, and then people just buy from you, and then you sell on a one-off basis, and they get printed on and shipped. That's the easiest way to start a clothing brand. There's also private label, which is essentially the same, except you're doing a lot more of the legwork. You're going out and finding the blanks yourself. You are creating the artwork, and then you have an embellisher, and then they print it on for you. You'll still have a little bit of inventory, but it's a lot less than a traditional manufacturing. And then there's OEM. OEM is the next step before you go into full contract manufacturing. That's when you find factories that have already developed and created a whole line of apparel in the niche that you want, and then you just pick and choose what you want from them. Sometimes you can do things like change colors or change fabrics. It depends on the manufacturer. Your inventory levels are going to be a lot lower, but still going to be higher than what a private label is going to be. And then the last one is going to be the contract manufacturing. So that's you design, you develop, you find factories, you pick out the fabrics, you're doing everything. Everything is your brand. The whole aesthetic, the silhouettes, the clothes, the colors, the fabrics, and then you find a factory that will basically assemble them for you and then ship them in, and you have much more inventory. And although your per unit cost is going to be a lot less, you're going to have a lot more inventory. So that's going to be your most expensive way to go. But if you got the money, in the end, you're going to save a lot more money if you know you have an audience that's going to buy from you. The next thing you want to do, once you've figured out your idea and your concept and then how you're going to produce them, you want to find out your name. I found so many people that have found a name that they love. We go all the way through sampling and even sometimes partially into production, and then they find out that their name is already taken. It's either some other brand in some other related industry is using that name, or it's already been trademarked and it might not be in use right now. You have to make sure that if this is the name that you want, you're going to protect it. So you either have to have you either wanted to get an LLC to protect the name in your state, or nationally to see if you can get a trademark for the name. They cannot tell you how many times I've had to pivot things either in the middle of production or just stop production altogether because the client did not secure their name before we went through all this, and then just ended up basically wasting all their money because now we have to rebrand everything. So definitely figure out your name ahead of time. Do all the legal things, the LLC, the business license, at the very least your DBA, if this is going to be just like a hobby kind of thing. Check your trademarks. If you can get a trademark, or at least check that no one's got the trademark for your name in any kind of related business. So if it's available, I would suggest to get it if you're truly serious about this name and your clothing brand. And then the next steps would be just to get your domain and your socials to make sure that nobody else publicly can take your name. Next is design. So are you going to design your clothing, or are you going to hire a designer? Do you need, if you're going to be doing a graphic tee, private label or print on demand company, you might just need a graphic designer. If you actually want to create original silhouettes, you're going to need an apparel designer. If you're doing handbags, obviously you need an accessories designer. If you're doing footwear, you need a footwear designer. There's a specific designer for every niche. Not every designer can do every single piece of apparel. We all specialize in something. And so you have to decide, how am I going to get my clothing designed? If you're going with a designer, the best thing for you to do is to be able to solidify your aesthetic and what you want to design. Obviously, like, do you want to design dresses, or do you want to design tops? Do you want to design bottoms or shoes or handbags? Whatever you want to design, just make sure you have that in your head when you go talk to a designer. Because the best thing you can do, and this is from a designer that works with tons of clients, is for you to already flush out your ideas when you get to me. Because if you're relying on me to do the job for you and your feedback is just make something awesome, you're going to be spending a lot more money on that designer to figure that out for you than for you to have already done the legwork to find out what your aesthetic is and give that to me, so I have a baseline, a focus to be able to design off of. And then also looking at your competitors and what you like about their designs. Things like fabric, because you're not going to be able to just go to Joann's fabric store and find every single piece of fabric, right? You're going to need to go shopping, and you need to find the fabrics that other brands are using and use those as a reference. So you know what, maybe what composition you like, maybe the look and feel you have, maybe it's a color that you really like, something like that, to be able to give a sample to either a factory or a designer to be able to work off of, because it's going to help you so much if you've got samples for people to touch and feel. So once you've got your designs together and your tech packs are done and you are ready to send this to a factory. And this is for more the contract manufacturing. So if you're sending this to a factory, it's always recommended, I think, that you have samples to send to the factory. If it's samples for fabric or for color or for fit, that always helps a factory with your tech packs. Your tech packs are going to be your blueprint for the development process, which is another reason why you want to have a really good designer that knows what they're doing. So in the development process, this is also when you are going to be sourcing factories. So are you going to be doing US based, offshore, or international factories? That's up to you. It depends on what you're going for, what profit margins you're willing to take and not take. And then also, this is when you're going to be getting, after you've figured out your factory, you're going to be getting your samples and also having your fittings with the fit model, so you can make tweaks and changes to the fit, to the design. This is the process of when you're going to be seeing your samples on a body, not on a piece of paper, and really make some real life decisions on how you want each individual piece for your clothing line to look. And then we get to production. So production is when you've done all the legwork to get your design going and your development, and you've approved your samples, you're ready to go into production. So production starts when you send that factory a PO. They'll go out and get the fabric that they need and start development on the trims that they need. 2 to 3 weeks, you will get a sample, a pre-production sample, and you'll continue to go through this process, pre-production sample and fitting, until they are approved. And once they are approved, they're going to production. You can't stop it. And that's going to shipping and heading to you so you can sell it to your customers. That's generally the process for the longer process for contract manufacturing. And I know it sounds very daunting, and it depends on what you want to do that will make it harder or less harder, but I definitely wanted to give you a realistic outcome of what the design, development, and production process is. I find so many times that people just don't have a realistic expectation of how long it takes to create a brand from scratch. When you're developing your own styles, they'll come to me and say, I want this done in 1 or 2 months, and it's an immediate no. That's not ever going to happen unless you're going for a private label or you're going for OEM. And even OEM, that's very much a stretch. So if you want to start a clothing line, that is what you're going to be up against. And a lot of the timeline you're not going to be able to control. So just be cognizant that if you're going to go down this rabbit hole of creating a clothing line for yourself from scratch, you're going to be looking at a minimum of 6 to 9 months for design to development to launch. And that's just the way it goes. Maybe you can shave things down here or there, but really, if you're going to be putting a whole bunch of money into a clothing line, you don't want to rush it. You know, that's one of the things that I see a lot of people want to do. They want to rush it so much. I'm like, you're going to be spending a ton of money. Like, I understand if you have an idea of like, I want it to be launched in spring. When you're just starting out and you are starting with a new factory, there's going to be so many bumps in the road. You'll eventually get there, but in the first collection, I would kind of temper your expectations. But so I hope you liked this. This was a little bit of a long one, but I definitely wanted to give you a full range of what you can expect in developing a clothing brand. If you want to continue to follow me and you like what you see and dive more deeply into the whole design process and how to build a successful clothing brand, please like and subscribe. And once I finish the next video, it will be right here for you to check out. Bye.